The twin suns of Tarkon 7 burned like fire over the desert market, where hundreds of alien traders shouted, laughed, and bargained for lives. Chains rattled, cages clanged, and the smell of metal and sweat filled the air. Among them walked a lone human named Eli Cross, a traveler, a scavenger, a man who had seen too much war. He had come only to buy scrap parts for his old ship. But fate had other plans. At the far end of the market, half hidden under a broken tent, sat a small cage. Inside it, a girl with pale blue skin, silver eyes, and hair like fallen moonlight sat motionless. She was not crying, not speaking, not even blinking much. A metal tag hung around her neck that read, "Mute, defective, 2 credits." Eli frowned. Even in this cruel corner of the galaxy, 2 credits was less than the price of an empty fuel cell. He looked at the trader, a fat reptilian creature with yellow teeth. "Why so cheap?" Eli asked. The trader laughed. "She doesn't talk, doesn't obey, doesn't do anything. Worthless human. You want her? Take her. She's a bad omen." Eli looked again at the girl. Her eyes lifted slowly and met his, and for a second he felt something strange. Not fear. Not weakness, just silence that felt heavy, like she was holding a secret she couldn't share. Against his better judgment, he said quietly, "I'll take her." The trader burst into laughter, throwing the small key toward him. "2 credits, fool, and she's yours. Don't blame me when she curses your ship." Eli handed over the coins and unlocked the cage. The girl didn't move, didn't even flinch when the door creaked open. He spoke softly. "Come on, you're free now." No answer. He reached out his hand carefully, trying to help her stand. But as soon as his fingers brushed her arm, everything changed. Her head snapped up, eyes glowing faintly with silver light. Her mouth opened. Then, after what felt like years of silence, she screamed, "Run!" The sound ripped through the market like an explosion. Eli froze, stunned. The slave traders stopped laughing. Every creature nearby turned in shock. The mute girl had just shouted her first word, and it was a warning. Before he could even ask what she meant, the ground trembled. Then it trembled again. Harder cages toppled, alien beasts screamed. Sand poured through cracks in the ground. A deep, rumbling roar rose from beneath the marketplace floor. Eli grabbed the girl's arm. "What is that?" he shouted. But she only repeated the same word, her voice shaking. "Run, run, run!" The floor exploded, throwing sand and metal into the air. A giant shape burst out from below, a black machine covered in shifting armor plates. Its red sensors glowed like burning eyes. Eli shielded the girl as debris rained down. He could hear the traders screaming, "It's awake! The hunter's awake!" He didn't wait to understand. He pulled her with him, running through the chaos as the huge machine tore apart the market. Each step it took made the ground shake. The air burned with heat and dust. Eli spotted a row of stolen skimmers by the edge of the dunes. He jumped into one, pulling the girl beside him. The engine coughed, then roared to life. As the skimmer lifted, he glanced back. The market was gone, swallowed by fire and smoke. The machine turned its head toward them. Locking on, a red beam scanned the air. Tracking the girl's energy signature, Eli pushed the throttle to full. Racing across the desert, wind whipped past them. The suns burning on their backs, he looked at her again. She was shaking, tears shining in her strange silver eyes. He wanted to ask 1,000 questions, but all he could say was, "You're not mute, are you?" She turned to him slowly, her lips trembling. "No," she whispered, her voice soft and full of pain. "They made me mute, so I wouldn't scream when they found me again." Eli's hands tightened on the controls. Behind them, the machine roared across the dunes, leaving fire in its trail. Whatever she was, whatever secret she carried, someone had built that monster to find her. And now it was coming for them both. The skimmer hit a rise and flew for a moment. Sand shimmered below like golden waves. The girl looked at the horizon and whispered a word Eli couldn't understand. Her skin glowed faintly with light, and the dunes ahead began to move, like something ancient beneath the desert was waking too. Eli didn't know what he had just bought. But one thing was clear. This mute alien girl was the key to something far bigger than he could imagine. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The desert wind screamed as Eli's skimmer sped across the burning dunes. Behind them, the black sky filled with smoke from the destroyed marketplace. The girl clung to the side rail, her silver eyes wide with terror, her voice still shaking from the scream that saved his life. Eli glanced over his shoulder. The machine was still coming. It ran on 6 jointed legs like a beast from a nightmare, its armor glimmering with red symbols, Every step it took sent a wave of sand flying. Every roar sounded like thunder tearing through metal. "What is that thing?" Eli shouted over the roaring wind. The girl didn't answer. She was staring at the horizon, whispering something too soft to hear. "Hey," he shouted again. "Talk to me. What's chasing us?" Finally, she looked at him and said one word. "Hunter." Eli frowned. "A hunter for what?" "For me," she said quietly, her voice trembling. "It was made to find me. It never stops." Eli's hands tightened on the controls. "Why? What did you do?" She didn't answer, only closed her eyes as if remembering something painful. The skimmer hit a ridge and bounced hard. Eli fought the controls, trying to keep balance. He could hear the hunter closing in, its shadow falling over them like a storm cloud. A red beam swept across the sand when it touched the skimmer. Alarms blared. "Energy lock detected," said the onboard AI. Eli cursed and turned sharply. "The vehicle sliding down a slope of golden dust. Hold on." He shouted. He cut the engine mid-slide, letting gravity pull them into a narrow canyon. The hunter stopped above the ridge, scanning the canyon entrance but not entering. Eli breathed heavily, his heart pounding. "What's wrong with it? Why isn't it following?" The girl looked at the rocks and said softly, "Because this place is old. Older than it." Her voice was calm now, almost sad. She stepped off the skimmer and touched one of the canyon walls. Her fingers glowed faintly and strange symbols appeared where she touched. Eli's eyes widened. "How did you do that?" She didn't answer, only said, "Come. It's safer inside." He followed her cautiously through a narrow passage that led deeper underground. The air turned cooler, heavy with the scent of stone and metal. Dim blue lights flickered along the walls, awakening as they walked. Eli realized the lights were reacting to her, wherever she stepped. The floor shimmered faintly beneath her feet. Finally, they entered a massive underground chamber. Strange machines hung from the ceiling like roots of some ancient tree. In the center was a stone platform surrounded by markings and broken orbs. "This place," Eli whispered. "What is it?" Lyra, he didn't know her name yet, but that was what she would soon tell him, answered quietly. "This is where my people died." Eli looked around, trying to make sense of it all. The machines looked alien but strangely human-made in design. Wires, gears, circuits, and symbols intertwined like a mix of technology and magic. She walked toward a cracked wall and placed her palm against it. A hologram flickered to life. Ghostly figures appeared. Tall beings with glowing eyes and silver armor. They were speaking in an ancient tongue. But Eli could feel the sadness in their movements. "They called us creations," she said softly. "We were built to control the war machines. But we refused to fight." Her voice broke slightly. "So they sent the hunters to erase us." Eli stepped closer. "And you survived?" She nodded, barely. "I locked my voice, sealed my energy, hid among the slaves." Eli's mind spun. A living weapon pretending to be a mute slave, hunted across worlds. No wonder the traders called her cursed. No wonder the machine went berserk the moment she spoke. The ground trembled again. Dust fell from the ceiling. Eli turned toward the tunnel. "It's back!" Lyra's eyes glowed faintly. "It found my signal again. When I spoke, it heard me. Then we have to go," Eli said, grabbing her hand, but she didn't move. She was staring at something glowing on the platform. "This chamber is connected to the old network," she whispered. "If I can reach it, I can stop the hunter. Or wake something worse." Eli snapped. "We don't even know what this place is." She looked at him, her expression calm but fierce. "You shouldn't have saved me," she said quietly. "Now it will come for you too." Eli smiled faintly. "Too late for regrets, kid. We're in this together now." The roar came again. Louder, closer, the canyon walls cracked. Metal dust falling like rain. Lyra stepped onto the glowing platform, placing both hands on it. A surge of light shot through the room. The ancient machines hummed, their lights flickering awake after centuries of silence. Symbols moved across the walls like rivers of fire. Eli covered his eyes, shouting, "What did you do?" She turned her head slightly, her voice almost echoing now. "I woke the ones who slept beneath the sand." The tremor grew into an earthquake. Outside, the hunter roared as something vast and buried began to stir. The dunes rippled and the horizon itself seemed to breathe. Eli stared at her in disbelief. Whatever she had just awakened was not just ancient, it was powerful. And as the light filled the chamber, He knew this was only the beginning of something far greater than either of them could control. The earth split open with a roar that shook the skies. Eli and the girl stumbled as the ground beneath them cracked, the ancient chamber collapsing around them. The glow from the platform pulsed like a heartbeat, sending waves of blue light through the walls. Then everything went silent for a heartbeat, too silent, before a deep metallic roar echoed from above. The hunter had found them again. Its massive shadow filled the canyon's mouth, claws scraping against the rock as it tore its way inside. Chunks of stone crashed around them. Dust clouded the air, and the old ruins screamed under the pressure of movement that hadn't existed for centuries. Eli grabbed the girl's arm, shouting, "We have to move now." She didn't argue. They ran through the half-lit corridors, chased by the red glare of the hunter's scanning eyes. Every step the machine took made the ancient structure crumble a little more. "Where does this tunnel go?" Eli shouted. "Up," she replied breathlessly. "To the dunes, to the open desert." "Good," Eli said. "I'd rather face sand than that monster." They burst out of a cracked passage and stumbled into the burning sunlight. The twin suns hung high in the sky, turning the dunes into waves of golden fire behind them. The hunter erupted from the canyon like a metal god, its limbs unfolding. It let out a piercing mechanical scream that made Eli's ears ring. "Run!" the girl shouted again. They slid down a steep dune. Sand sprang around them. Eli hit the ground hard, rolling, pulling the girl to her feet as they sprinted toward the horizon. But the desert was endless. There was no cover, no city, no hope of outrunning a machine that could fly if it wanted to. Eli's heart pounded. He looked back just in time to see the hunter leap down the canyon, landing with a shockwave that sent sand flying for hundreds of meters. It started running, fast, too fast. Its claws sank deep into the sand but never slowed. And every few seconds a red beam flashed from its chest, locking onto the girl's energy signature. "Why is it chasing you?" Eli demanded as they ran. She gasped between breaths. "It's bound to my code. I was its controller once. Before I locked it away, now it hunts me because I broke my bond." "You mean that thing used to obey you?" "Yes," she whispered. "And now it wants to erase the mistake I became." Eli stopped suddenly, turned, and fired his plasma pistol. The bolt hit the hunter's chest but only left a scorch mark. The machine didn't even slow down. It jumped forward, smashing through the sand like a tidal wave of metal. "Okay," Eli shouted, grabbing her hand as, "We can't kill it. But maybe we can hide from it." She shook her head. "It can sense energy. It will always find me." Eli frowned, looking around. Then his eyes fell on a ridge of black stones in the distance, half buried but glowing faintly blue beneath the sunlight. "What's that?" he asked. Lyra's eyes widened slightly. "Those are resonance stones from my people's time." Eli's voice hardened. "Then maybe they can block its signal." Without waiting, he pulled her toward them. The hunter's roar grew louder. Its claws sliced through the dunes, cutting deep paths in the golden sand. Eli and the girl reached the stones and ducked behind a half-buried structure. The stones vibrated softly, creating a faint hum that resonated through the air. The girl touched one, and her skin glowed faintly with matching light. "It's working," she whispered. "It can't see us." "Not for now." Eli sat down beside her, panting, sweat dripping from his face. He looked at her properly for the first time. She was young, barely 20 by human measure. Her silver eyes shimmered like glass, and strange lines glowed faintly along her neck, like hidden circuits under skin. "Who are you?" he asked softly. She hesitated, then said, "My name is Lyravan, last of the architects." "Architects?" he repeated. She nodded. "My people created the hunters, and the machines that ruled the wars." Her gaze dropped. "But some of us grew tired of killing, so we tried to shut them down. We were marked as traitors, hunted across the stars." Eli listened quietly. So that was why she had been sold as a slave. Not because she was worthless, but because she was dangerous to the wrong people. A sudden vibration broke the silence. The hunter's red beam swept across the dunes again. Stopping for a moment at their ridge, Lyra gasped. "It's adapting. It's breaking through the stone interference." Eli stood up, pulling her hand again. "Then we move now." They ran again, sand burning their boots, wind cutting their faces. The hunter howled behind them, its armor plates opening to reveal thrusters that flared red hot. It took to the air, half running, half flying across the dunes. Eli looked up and shouted, "It's flying now?" "You've got to be kidding me." Lyra turned, her eyes glowing. She raised her hand toward the horizon. whispering a string of words in her ancient tongue. The ground beneath them trembled again. Suddenly, pillars of blue light shot from the sand, forming a line between them and the hunter. The machine roared, slamming into the invisible barrier. It screeched in fury, sparks flying. Eli shielded his face as the air crackled with energy. "What did you do?" he shouted. "I woke the old defense grid," she said, panting. "It will hold, for a while." Eli turned to her, breathing heavily. "You know, you're full of surprises," she gave a small, sad smile. "And you're foolish for helping me," he chuckled. "Yeah, that's probably true." Behind them, the hunter clawed at the glowing wall, breaking it piece by piece. They could see its red eyes burning through the cracks. Eli stared at the horizon and said, "Where's the nearest settlement?" Lyra pointed north. 2 days across the dunes, if we live that long." He grinned and started walking. "Then let's make those 2 days count." The wind howled again. The suns dipped lower and far behind them. The hunter screamed, a sound that promised it would never stop until one of them was dead. The suns had begun to set, turning the dunes of Transcends 7 into rivers of red and gold. Eli and Lyra moved through the fading light, their shadows long across the sand. They hadn't spoken for hours. The only sound was the low hum of her energy signature that refused to stay quiet. Each time she exhaled, the faint glow under her skin flickered. Each time the wind shifted, Eli feared the hunter would hear it again. When night finally came, the desert changed, the heat died, replaced by a sharp cold that bit into Eli's skin. The stars above stretched endlessly, 2 galaxies twined together like silver ribbons. It was beautiful, but it didn't feel safe. They made camp in the hollow of a dune. Eli used his cloak as cover while Lyra sat cross-legged, her hands hovering over the sand. Lines of faint blue light pulsed from her fingers, shaping a small shimmering dome around them. "What's that?" Eli asked. "Energy veil," she said softly. "It hides us for now." He sat beside her, tossing a pebble into the sand. "You talk more now," he said with a tired smile. Lyra's gaze remained on the dunes. "Because I must. Silence once protected me, but now it could kill us both." Eli leaned back. "Looking at the sky, you said you were an architect. What does that mean?" She hesitated, then looked at him, her eyes reflecting starlight. "We built things that could outlive us, machines, weapons, cities that floated in space. The hunters were meant to protect our worlds, but they turned against us when we refused to obey our masters." Eli frowned. "You mean someone else controlled them?" She nodded. "The makers. They saw us as tools, not people. They created us to command their armies, but when we rebelled, they called us dangerous." Her voice trembled. "They wiped us out. The hunter you saw, it's the last reminder of that war." The words sank deep into Eli's mind. He had fought in wars before, against humans, against machines, but this was different. This wasn't just a battle for power. It was a battle for existence, and somehow, this quiet alien girl sitting beside him was the last piece of a forgotten civilization. Suddenly, the ground under them rumbled softly. Eli froze, his hand on his blaster. Lyra looked up, her silver eyes narrowing. "It's not the hunter," she said. "This vibration, it's alive." The sand around them began to shift. The dunes parted slowly, revealing black stone beneath etched with glowing lines. Eli stood, gripping her arm. "What's happening?" Lyra whispered. "The desert remembers me. It's answering the call I sent earlier." Before Eli could speak, the sand collapsed beneath their feet. They fell, tumbling through darkness and light until they landed hard on a smooth metallic floor. Eli groaned, pushing himself up. The place around them was enormous, like the inside of a buried starship. Walls of silver and glass curved into infinity, glowing symbols drifting like smoke in the air. Eli whispered, "This is no ruin. It's alive." Lyra stood, her hand brushing the nearest wall. "It's a vault," she said, "the last sanctuary of my kind." As her palm touched the surface, the vault responded. Lights flickered on, humming with power. The air filled with a faint melodic sound, like the song of something ancient remembering its purpose. Holograms appeared, images of beings like her working, building, laughing, then fire. Destruction screams the hunters, thousands of them. Turning on their creators, Eli stepped closer. Watching the scenes unfold, Lyra's voice trembled as she spoke. "My people tried to lock the vault before the end, to hide the knowledge of creation. If the makers find this place, they'll rebuild their armies." The air thickened with the weight of her words. Eli turned to her. Then we destroy it before they do. She looked at him in surprise. You destroy something that could change history? He nodded firmly. If it means saving lives, yes. Before she could reply, a low alarm echoed through the vault. The holograms vanished, replaced by red warning lights. The hunter, Lyra whispered. It's found the entrance. The sound of tearing metal echoed above them. Dust and sparks fell from the ceiling as the monster clawed its way into the vault. Its red eyes glowed brighter than ever. Eli raised his blaster, firing repeatedly, but the shots bounced harmlessly off its armor. Lyra closed her eyes, pressing both palms to the floor. The vault responded instantly. Pillars of energy rose from the ground, forming barriers between them and the hunter, but the machine tore through them one by one. Advancing relentlessly, Eli shouted, It's breaking through! What do we do? Lyra's voice was calm but urgent. There's a core chamber ahead. If I can reach it, I can seal the vault forever. He didn't hesitate. Then let's go. They ran through corridors of light, the hunter crashing behind them like a storm. Every wall they passed shimmered with ancient code. Reacting to her presence when they reached the central chamber, Lyra stopped and turned to Eli. You can't follow me in there. The vault will only recognize my kind. He grabbed her wrist. You're not going alone. Her eyes softened. You're human, Eli Cross. You survive when others fall. Please, trust me this once. Before he could argue, the door sealed shut between them. He pressed his hand against the glass-like surface as she stepped into a sea of light. The vault's heart glowed brighter and brighter until it drowned everything in white. Outside, the hunter roared. Inside, Lyra's voice echoed faintly through the light. For my people, and for him. The vault trembled violently, then everything went still. The hunter froze mid-step, its eyes dimming. And Eli stood alone in the silence, surrounded by the last breath of a civilization that refused to die quietly. The silence inside the buried vault was thick, almost alive. Eli stood frozen among the floating dust and pale blue light, his breath shallow, his heart pounding against his ribs moments ago. The place had been shaking with power, light bursting from every wall. Now, everything was still too still. He pressed his palm against the glass wall that had sealed Lyra away. It was warm, not from heat but from life beyond it. Faint shapes moved inside the radiance like veins of lightning trapped in water. Lyra, he whispered, can you hear me? No answer. Only a hum that seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. Then, without warning, a ripple passed through the floor. The blue light flickered red for a second, then shifted back to white. Somewhere deep inside the vault, something woke up. Eli drew his weapon instinctively, even though he knew it was useless against what they had just faced. Still, the human instinct to fight refused to die. He turned as a low rumble echoed from behind him. The hunter, the same black metal monster that had chased them across the dunes, was moving again. Its once bright red eyes now flickered weakly. It was damaged but not dead. The vault's blast had stunned it, maybe even slowed it but not destroyed it completely. Eli raised his pistol, backing away slowly. The machine growled, a strange sound, half mechanical, half animal, then stopped. It wasn't attacking, it was waiting. Its sensors turned not to him but toward the chamber where Lyra had vanished. The glass wall pulsed once more and the hum grew louder. Suddenly, cracks spread across the surface, light spilling through them like liquid fire. Eli shielded his eyes as the glass shattered outward in a slow-motion wave. From within the brightness, a figure stepped out, small, frail, glowing softly like a living star. Lyra, Eli breathed. She was changed. Her silver eyes now shone with deep gold at the edges, her skin traced with bright patterns of light. She no longer looked frightened. She looked calm, powerful, ancient. The glow from her hands spread outward, touching the vault walls and making them bloom with color. The vault responded to me, she said quietly, her voice echoing strangely. It recognized my bloodline. It showed me everything, what we were, what we lost, what still sleeps beneath this world. Eli stared, stunned. You merged with it, didn't you? She nodded slowly. Part of me did, yes. It carries the memories of my kind. I can hear their voices now. Her eyes turned toward the wounded hunter. And it hears them too. The machine took one hesitant step forward, its claws scraping against the floor. For the first time it didn't roar. Instead, it lowered its massive head slightly, Almost like a bow, Eli's eyes widened. It's obeying you? Lyra looked at it sadly. Not obeying. Remembering. She lifted her hand and the creature froze, her voice softened. Long ago it was bound to protect us. It still carries that code inside. She turned to Eli, her expression heavy with something deeper than sadness. But that code was rewritten by the Makers. It's been at war with itself ever since. Eli stepped closer, watching her with both awe and concern. What are you going to do? I can free it, she said softly, but when I do, it may destroy itself. Eli's instinct screamed to stop her, but the look in her eyes silenced him. It wasn't reckless, it was peaceful, inevitable. She walked slowly toward the machine. Her glow brightened with every step, until even the shadows seemed to bow away from her. The hunter trembled, its armor plates shifting like muscles under skin. When her hand touched its chest, a shockwave rippled through the vault. Images flashed around them, echoes of the past. Her people, the architects, walking among stars. The Makers forging weapons in silence. Worlds burning, skies filled with machines. And then, darkness, Lyra whispered. I release you. The hunter roared one final time, not in anger, but in something that almost sounded like relief. Its body shuddered. The red light in its eyes faded, and then it fell still. The massive machine collapsed like a mountain. Dust rising around them in golden clouds, Lyra knelt beside it, her hand still resting on the cold armor. A single tear rolled down her glowing cheek, evaporating before it touched the ground. Eli approached carefully, his voice low. Lyra, you did it. She nodded faintly. It's free now. All of them are. Every hunter connected to this vault will shut down. He looked at her in disbelief. You just stopped a galactic weapon with your voice. She gave a small, almost shy smile. Not my voice, Eli. Our bond, he frowned. Our bond? She looked up at him, her golden eyes reflecting his human face. When you touched me at the market, your DNA pattern awakened the old network. Humans weren't supposed to exist in their systems. You confused them, your will connected with mine. Together we broke the lock. Eli let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. So, a coincidence? She shook her head. No, the vault called to you. You were meant to be here. He tried to laugh, but the weight of what she said hit him too hard. Meant to be? He was just a scavenger. A wanderer who bought a mute slave out of pity, but now, the universe itself seemed to whisper that his choice had changed everything. Lyra stood slowly, her glow fading. I've silenced the hunters, she said, but the Makers, they'll come now. They'll feel the loss of control. Eli loaded his pistol, even though he knew it wouldn't be enough. Then we'll be ready for them. She looked at him with something almost like affection. For a human, you have no idea what you're standing against. He smiled faintly. Then it's a good thing humans are stubborn. The vault walls pulsed again, projecting new symbols, coordinates, star maps. Lyra stared at them in silence. They're coming, she whispered, the Makers' fleet. From the outer rim. Eli holstered his weapon, his voice steady. Then we take the fight to them. For the first time, Lyra didn't look like a frightened fugitive or a lost experiment. She looked like a queen reborn from ashes. And as the vault lights dimmed behind them, the desert above began to tremble once more, because something far greater than the hunters was already on its way. The night sky above Tarkon 7 burned with streaks of fire. Dozens of crimson lights pierced the atmosphere, falling like stars gone mad. But they weren't stars, they were ships. Eli watched from the canyon's edge, his heart pounding as each glowing shape tore through the clouds. The desert wind screamed against the storm of descent. The horizon itself lit up in red. Beside him, Lyra stood silently, her silver gold eyes fixed on the sky. They're here, she whispered. The Makers have found us. Eli tightened the strap on his blaster, his jaw set. What are we looking at? Scouts? Warships? Neither, she said softly. Those are judgment carriers. Each one carries 1,000 drones. When they land, nothing living survives. He swallowed hard. You weren't kidding, he muttered. Lyra didn't respond, her mind was somewhere else, listening, feeling the electric hum in the air. She could sense their signals, sharp, mechanical, hateful. The Makers were already scanning for her life pattern, and she could feel them pulling at the edges of her consciousness like hooks in her mind. Eli turned to her. Tell me there's a way to fight them. Lyra looked at him, her expression unreadable. "There is," she said after a long pause, "but it will cost us everything." They made their way back through the dunes toward the vault's entrance. The air crackled with static, the sand vibrating beneath their boots. In the distance, the first carrier landed with an impact that sent shockwaves across the desert. From its belly poured swarms of black drones, their red optics sweeping like searching eyes. Eli aimed his blaster at the sky and fired a single shot. The bolt vanished into the swarm without leaving a mark. He exhaled, frustrated. "Yeah, that's what I thought. Not even a scratch." Lyra placed her hand on his shoulder gently. "Your weapon can't harm them, but your will might." He looked at her, confused. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You're part of the link now," she explained. "When I awakened the vault, our bond merged with its network. Your human pattern, your defiance. It's what the makers can't predict." "Defiance?" he asked, smirking despite the fear tightening his chest. "Yeah," she said softly. "It's what makes you human." The ground shook again. 3 more carriers landed, surrounding the region. The dunes exploded in waves of light and sound. The air was filled with the drone swarm's shrill metallic cries. Then came the voices, deep, resonant, and ancient. They spoke through the machines, every word vibrating inside the bones. "Lyravan of the Architects, surrender the core, and your extinction will be merciful." Lyra's eyes hardened. She looked up at the ships hovering in the clouds. Her voice, calm but defiant, carried through the wind. "Your mercy destroyed my people once. I will not kneel again." The sky responded with fire. Dozens of beams lanced down. Striking the dunes around them, Eli grabbed her arm, pulling her behind a ridge as the sand erupted into molten glass. He coughed, spitting dust. "We can't stay out here." "They'll vaporize us!" Lyra nodded, her face set with quiet resolve. "Then we make our stand inside the vault." They ran, diving through collapsing tunnels as explosions thundered above. The vault doors loomed ahead, glowing with ancient symbols. Lyra raised her hand, and they opened like a living gate. The hum of the old machinery returned. Lights flickered along the walls, recognizing her presence again. Eli followed, weapon ready, heart pounding. "Tell me this place has some kind of defense system." Lyra smiled faintly. "It does, but it needs a living will to control it, one strong enough to resist the Maker's signal." She looked at him meaningfully, and his stomach dropped. "Oh no," he said. "You don't mean me, do you?" "You're already connected to the vault's code," she said. "It responds to you as much as it does to me. You can help me guide it." Before he could argue, the vault shuddered violently. Metal screamed overhead as the ceiling cracked open. One of the carriers was descending directly above them. Tearing through the rock, beams of red light lanced through the air. From them stepped 3 towering figures, the Makers. They weren't fully flesh or machine. Tall, faceless beings made of polished obsidian, their forms shifting with every movement, their voices layered, mechanical, and divine. "You should not exist, human," they said. "You infect what was pure." Eli stood his ground. "Yeah, that's kind of our thing," he said dryly. Lifting his weapon, they ignored him, their focus fixed on Lyra. "Return the vault to our control, daughter of the defect line." Lyra stepped forward, the golden glow returning to her skin. Her voice rose like thunder. "I am not your creation anymore." The Makers raised their hands. Energy crackled between them, a storm of power that could erase entire cities. Eli grabbed her hand without thinking. The vault reacted instantly. Blue light exploded outward, forming a barrier around them. The symbols along the floor burned bright, spiraling into motion. The Makers' attack struck the shield and shattered like glass. Their voices roared. "Impossible! Human code cannot override divine design." Eli shouted through the noise. "Guess your design needs a software update." The vault's core pulsed faster. The light from their joined hands spread across the floor like wildfire. The old machines began to move, giant structures rising from the ground. Weapons older than the Makers themselves hummed to life. Lyra's voice blended with his, their link now complete. Her power and his human defiance merged into one signal. Outside, the carriers faltered. Drones spiraled out of control, their systems screaming as the vault's pulse corrupted their code. The entire desert lit up like dawn breaking. When the light faded, only silence remained. The carriers floated in ruins above the dunes. The Makers' voices had vanished, and Lyra and Eli stood at the heart of the vault, still holding hands, surrounded by the ashes of gods. Eli looked at her, his face pale but alive. Did we just win? She smiled softly. For now. She turned toward the desert horizon. The Makers will rebuild, but now they know humans exist, and they will fear what they don't understand. Eli chuckled weakly. Good. Fear keeps enemies awake at night. As the suns rose once more, the vault's light dimmed to quiet peace. The storm had passed, but a new dawn was beginning, one that would echo through every corner of the stars. The desert was quiet again, but it wasn't peace. It was the silence that comes after something too powerful to name. The twin suns rose over the scorched dunes of Tarkon 7, painting the wreckage of the Maker's fleet in crimson and gold. Their warships lay half-buried in sand, burning faintly, their dark smoke curling into the dawn. The world was still breathing, barely, and two figures stood among the ruins of gods, Eli and Lyra. They stood together at the mouth of the vault, the place where everything had begun. The wind tugged at his coat and her silver hair, carrying the faint hum of dying machines across the desert. Eli stared at the horizon, his face tired but alive, his hands trembling from exhaustion. He had seen too much in the last few hours. Machines turning into monsters, aliens calling him a virus, and a girl who once couldn't speak now commanding the voice of creation itself. Lyra's glow had faded now, but the gold shimmer still lingered faintly beneath her skin. The vault's power was inside her. It breathed through her heartbeat, through her veins, through every whisper of wind that brushed her face. Eli turned toward her, his voice soft. It's over, right? We beat them? She didn't answer right away, only looked toward the horizon where the remains of the Maker's ship still burned. Finally, she said, No. They'll return. The Makers never stop. They will rebuild. They always do. Eli sighed, kicking at the sand. Then what do we do now? Lyra looked down at her hands, watching the faint golden light flicker and fade. The vault chose me as its last core, Eli, but I can't stay here. The signal still reaches the stars. I can feel their fleets beyond the rim. They'll come again unless I end it completely. He frowned. End it how? She hesitated, her eyes full of sorrow. I have to shut down the vault permanently. If I merge fully with it, I can erase every trace of the old network. The Maker's codes, the hunters, the technology that lets them rebuild. But it means I'll cease to exist as I am now. Eli stared at her in disbelief. You're saying you'd become part of the vault, she finished quietly. Forever. The wind fell still. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Eli finally said, There has to be another way. There isn't, she whispered, her eyes meeting his. I was made to end what they started. My silence was never a curse, it was protection. A way to keep the core hidden until someone like you came. Someone like me? He asked, voice rough. She smiled faintly, a small, tired curve of her lips. A human. Someone who still believes in choice. He shook his head, stepping closer. You're not doing this alone, Lyra. We'll find another solution. There's always a way. But she reached up, her fingers brushing his cheek. Her touch was warm, too warm, and glowing faintly with the same light that pulsed from the vault. Eli, your kind fights to live even when there's no hope left. That's why the vault responded to you. But this fight, it was never yours to finish. He grabbed her hand and held it tightly. Maybe not, but I'm not letting you die for it either. She looked at him, tears glimmering like molten glass. I died the day the hunters took my world. What I am now is something else. She stepped back, her glow brightening again. The vault behind her began to hum, its massive walls awakening like a heart remembering how to beat. Eli's voice broke as he said, Lyra, don't. She smiled softly. You gave me my voice. Eli, let me use it one last time. The ground trembled. The sky above the desert split open with light as the vault's core rose from the sand. Energy flowed through every canyon, every ruin, every shattered ship. The air filled with the song of her people, a melody that had been silent for 1,000 years. Now reborn in her voice, Eli shielded his eyes as the light grew too bright. Through the glare, he saw her standing at the center of it all, hair whipping in the wind, her arms raised toward the heavens. Her final words echoed through the desert like a vow. For the architects who dreamed, for the worlds they tried to save, For the human who made me believe again. The vault exploded in pure white light. The dunes rippled outward, waves of energy racing across the planet. Every remaining Maker ship disintegrated into dust. Every hunter core across the galaxy shut down silently. And then, nothing but the whisper of the wind. When Eli opened his eyes again, the vault was gone. Only a vast crater of glass and sand remained. Glowing faintly under the morning sun, he stood there for a long time silent, staring at the empty space where she had been. The desert was quiet once more, but it didn't feel dead. It felt alive, as if something unseen was still there, watching, protecting, remembering. He knelt down, scooping a handful of glowing sand in his hand. It shimmered softly, almost pulsing like a heartbeat. He smiled sadly, whispering, "You're still here, aren't you?" The wind answered faintly, carrying a single, gentle voice. "Run." Eli laughed through the tears that stung his eyes. That same word, the one she had shouted when this all began, now it sounded different. Not a warning this time, a promise. He stood up, turned toward the horizon and began walking. The twin suns rose higher behind him, and far above the endless dunes, a faint trail of golden light shimmered like a guardian watching from beyond the veil. The mute girl was gone, but her voice would echo across the stars forever.